amazing variety, and it's a great pleasure for all of those who come to the library to see the art shows that we have. And so currently, Musama is our featured artist. Her work will be here for the entire month, and then we'll have another artist. So when you come to the library, please stop by the wall. You've just been passed a ticket, a paper with a number on it. So we have, for your pleasure tonight, this beautiful painting, which you may win if you have the right number. So we are very grateful for your being here. We are very grateful for Musama's art. And so I think you want to hear from her what she has to say about fusion art. So I will stop right there. So enjoy.
People are waiting there. They don't know whether they can come. So please request them to come over.
Come in.
Okay, thank you everyone to come over and seeing all these beautiful faces and the familiar faces. And they're all of my friends. So I really appreciate my friends showing up to encourage me to present my work. Thank you again. So why fusion art? But before I answer my question about why, I'll read a poem. I'm not familiar with this computer, so bear with me.
Come sit down.
Okay.
Wait, let me get one. Okay.
Mundane story, and I'll explain why mundane later on. She's an ordinary woman, housed in a tin shed, nestled in the shades of mango tree. Nothing spectacular is expected to happen, steering her life toward an uncharted path. A child, an unremarkable marriage, tied to an ordinary reality, winds blowing from the north, damp leftover leaves on her way. With a 9-to-5 job entwined with household chores, and raising a child, fulfilling middle-class dreams, she's content with her routine existence. The fortune teller never takes a detour to impart her a different tale. Yet, sometimes, stepping out of her doorstep, she longs for that rose, to smell the essence of an extraordinary experience. But what is truly an extraordinary life? So let's find out. So before I go into fusion, let me explain why even art, why we engage so much ourselves to paint. And what is that? One primary one is to make waves. Everybody is familiar with Guernica, Picasso's Guernica. It makes a lot of waves. And also recently is Banksy, the graffiti artist, Banksy, that invisible Banksy. He is also making a lot of waves through his street arts. So we create arts to make waves. And also, a lot of time we feel that we should analytically interpret and analyze the art, but the art is not meant to be understood, as Lacan pointed it out. It should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable, as Cesar Cruz mentioned. Yes?
I was just going to say, Lacan, the second guy you're talking about, he says it's not for it to be understood. Have you ever read him, Lacan? He's almost impossible to understand himself.
Thank you for the insight.
When translated to English, I tried to read him in graduate school. I have no idea what he's talking about. I wasn't the only one.
Okay, and then also art is not meant to be just telling beautiful stories. It is supposed to capture the rawness of life and our infrastructure through artist eyes, through artist brushstrokes, colors, vibrancy, and intermixed with dreams and desires that artists have.
Beautiful.
And last but not the least is to uplift us from the drudgery of life, the mundaneness that we face every day. As I mentioned about that ordinary or the mundane story, we go through every day doing all this routine stuff. Art gives us or uplifts us from that mundaneness. I just found out right before I finished my my presentation, so I could not not include this. I found someone mentioned that, but I don't know who was the author. And I'm not going to focus on buying stuff, but what is meant all about art. You're not buying years of frustration, but you're buying what is inherent in an art, the moments of pure joy. And you're not buying just one product or thing. You're buying a piece of a heart, a piece of a soul, a small piece of someone's life. That's why art is so precious. You cannot really give a dollar value to that. But then you may ask, why fusion? Why fusion art? What is meant by that? I lived in New York, the big city, New York. And when I was walking around in the alleys and the streets and the subways, I realized our lives are interwoven in a quilted fabric, which is very rich with diaspora colors, tapestry, and stories. So just focusing on one thing will kind of discriminate all the richness that's laying around all across the big city, New York. And I want to utilize that, use that to express myself. We humans are very complex in terms of our emotions. Our emotions are very complicated and complex. And just by focusing on one medium or one form of art, I cannot, at least that's how I feel, I cannot express all my emotions, the depth of my emotions and the complexities of my emotions through one media or through one form of art. So that's why I feel it's very important for me to fuse all different types of art. And there are many different types of art that people over thousands of years, even before we started to speak. If you go to the caves in France, what did you do? Paint, draw, to communicate, to express our ideas, our thoughts, our emotions, and also making a statement as well. As I mentioned about Banksy or Guernica. So I know I'm not great, but I want to tap into that richness. And then, as Madhusri Ghosh, an Indian artist, mentioned, world needs more colors. And as I mentioned, that the quilted fabric is very rich in colors. So we should utilize that. We should harness that. We should make it our own. So bring on colors. Be loud. Don't be afraid. Be loud with your artwork. Be proud also. Don't be ashamed. Be proud what you produce. That's you. That's your emotional aspects. And that's what your statement also. Whether you are happy or dissatisfied with the infrastructure, with the system, you have the right. You can express this through your bold art forms. And also show your diversity. It's not monolithic world. It's very diverse. So why not show the diversity that you carry within yourself? In other words, show yourself. There's plenty of room for everyone. But then why folk art? What is so great about folk art? It's the identity of diaspora cultures and traditions. And it's mostly the voice of marginalized women and ordinary folks. And that's true across the globe. It's not just South Asia. If I go to East Europe, or if I go to East China or Africa or Latin America, it's the same story over and over again. Why these women create those arts? What is the reason? They are facing extreme poverty or mundaneness in their life. It's a very routine life. And that's why I mentioned about that ordinary women having a very routine existence. So how could they cope with that? To go beyond that is through art and their dream captured in their folk art. But unfortunately, they are not in the mainstream media because it doesn't give you ROI, return on investment. There's not so much profit making in folk art. So that's one of the issues there. And these artists are primarily self-taught because they don't have the means to go to school, art schools, to learn the techniques. It's almost like hands down from their foremothers, from their ancestral past. So they learn by doing. And also there's this urge to break away, to create, to break the barrier they face every day on and create their dreams through folk art. And they use any media they can get hold of. Mud walls, especially I found not only in South Asia, I also find in Africa, there were these beautiful mud houses, and they're all painted by women. Because that's their dream, they're expressing. They're getting out of that barrier that was created and get out of it and create their own dream, their own space. And as I said, this is why folk art is so important, at least to me. I can connect as a diaspora woman. This is my identity. This is also my heritage. When I grew up, I don't know about, say, for example, Russian folk art, or also Latin American or African folk art. But somehow, by relating to my South Asian folk art heritage, I can somehow feel a keenness to those different folk art activities going on across the globe. I can relate to that, even though I don't understand most of the time, because my culture background is different from African culture or Latin American or East European or East Asian culture. I'm South Asian. So, but there is this universality across the globe, and I want to feel a part of this universal community. So what are the characteristics of folk art? It dances in vibrant colors. And since these women, mostly women, live in their own cocoon because they don't have the opportunity or the means to travel or go somewhere else, so the stories they tell is very intimate and very intricate about their lives, about their dreams they grew up with. And it's also very detailed. And it's expressed through simple and very sharp lines, unlike the modern art form that we find today. And it's rich in storytelling. They try to tell their stories through art forms. And since they're isolated, it's very rich in cultural artifacts because that's what they know about. And that's what they express about. So yes, folk art dances in all these facets. And how they primarily dealt with human figures, activities, social activities, familiar activities, and also nature. But no abstract art that we see in modern art form. It's a mesmerizing dream for me to fuse Western and the South Asian folk art. The reason is that most of my life I lived here, but my heritage is South Asia. So I'm fortunate to be exposed to both different types of cultures. So why not integrate them and enrich my artwork, and also not just my artwork, myself as an individual. And that's what I do. So I borrow from vibrant colors from folk arts. They're very loud. Mainstream media doesn't like that, to be very honest. They like very subdued expressions. And also, I want to use the rich styles and forms, not just of the folk art also, but also the modern Western art. And I also want to tap into the cultural artifacts of folk art, the storytelling aspects. And being a diaspora, I want to create a voice, a diaspora voice. And also, as I mentioned, our emotions are very complex. So create a platform to express, and also a diverse platform to express my emotions. And also utilize the abstract representations of the modern art. As well as I walk around in Bronx, Brooklyn, when I see those graffitis and those street arts, they're mesmerizing. I want to capture some of that spirit, even though I don't think I'm successful, but I try to get that life from that graffiti and street arts into my artwork. And if you go around and see the exhibit, you will see the intermixing of both street arts as well as the modern Western arts into my South Asian folk art heritage. You may now ask, who am I? Who am I to talk? Why do I have stand up in front of you and try to express myself and say how wonderful this world is or how mundane our rituals are? So let me give a little bit tidbits of me and myself. My background, my heritage, as I already mentioned, I'm a South Asian Bengali diaspora. And I'm mostly trained in physics and high tech. So you may ask, why did I foray into art and creative writing? There is a story to tell her. The story is that I had a 3D startup, 3D technology startup, and I had to fold it. So I was pretty down, and I was in New York City, and I wanted to get out of it, that mold. So as I walk around and talk to people from different diaspora fabrics, I started to sketch them, capture their faces in my sketchwork, and capture their stories in my writing. And that helped me a lot, tremendously. So that's when I started to foray into art and creative writing. So you may ask, how dare you are? You don't even have the background. I agree, I don't have the background, but I had that dream. I had that inspirations or aspirations to create and to create a voice, not just for myself only, but for all the women because I'm a woman and I want to be identified all women. So I basically self-taught artist. Even though I did get some classes, did take some classes at Stanford, Yale, and also Bangladesh Arts Institute. Okay, I should not boast about my accomplishments. After all, I'm just a self-taught artist, and I'm just a newcomer in this area. But I do have something to share with you. I was one of the BLM mural artists in Palo Alto in 2020. So that's like out of many applicants, only 16 artists were selected to do the BLM mural in front of the city hall. And I was one of the 16 artists who did the BLM mural. And I did the letter C, because there are 16 words. And then I also had solo art exhibits. Fortunate, my friends and families helped me a lot. So I did have art exhibit in Palo Alto, Redwood City, as well as in San Jose. And I did murals in Harlem, in New York City. I'll share with you later on, and also in Redwood City. And I'm still doing a lot of murals in Redwood City. And yeah, I did receive a few awards from international art galleries from Calcutta in India, also from Brazil and Germany. But I also have some awards in my bag from US galleries as well. So that's my brief background. And I just admit I'm nobody, but I still want to feel proud about myself. So that's why I'm sharing. But then why choose folk art? I already mentioned, this is my diaspora female identity. That's my heritage, South Asian folk art. That's one of the biggest regions that I grew up with it. In all the rituals, all the festivals, there's all these representations of folk arts all across, like weddings. I used to paint in the weddings because all these baskets are all hand-painted with folk arts. And I used to participate, so that's the legacy I carry with me. That's the heritage. I cannot, and so that's my identity. As well as the richness and intimacy that folk arts provides. As I mentioned about all these marginalized women living in the rural areas, they don't have any other discourse. But art is the only way they can escape the darkness, the drudgery of their life. And if you had the opportunity to see the exhibit, you'll say that I don't really confine myself into one art form or one media or one textural stuff. And as I mentioned earlier also, and the reason is that as humans, our emotions are very complex. I want to tap into that complexity, to express that emotional dimensions through my artworks, even though I'm just a newcomer, but I want to do that. So I have the one good part about being old, I don't have to worry about selling and make a living out of my artwork. So I can foray into different, I have much higher degrees of freedom to go into all different areas and experiment with that. And being a physicist, I love to do experiments. So that's what I do, like emotional exploration that offered by folk art, the abstract art, and even the portraiture that I do. And the textural feelings I get when I use canvas versus when I use, like, you can see the pottery here. It gives me different aspects. And you can see even like this. That's why I brought, to show the richness of different textural issues. And I want to foray into it, and being older, human, I do have that freedom, unlike a lot of the younger artists. Because I remember one time in New York City, there was this art exhibit going on in the street. And when this artist asked me what was my profession, at that time I was still working. And when I said I'm a high-tech professional, he said, oh, you are lucky. I said, why do you say that? Oh, you can make a living from your skills. I said, why, art doesn't do that? He said, no. It's a much difficult for artists to make full living. So that way I feel that, yeah, I'm fortunate that way, that I don't have to make a living out of my artwork. So that gives me also the responsibility to create a platform for the voice of marginalized people, for the voice of diasporas, and the voice of women. And that's I do not only for my artwork, but also in my writing. If you visit my site, New York City Rainbow Faces, you'll see that I do want to create voice for women, for my diaspora identity, and also for other aspects of life, as well as you can see in this artwork. That's why I brought some of this artwork to show that I'm also concerned about environment, the global warming. So this depicts that part of my artwork. And then I also intermix not just folk and modern art, but also digital and traditional art. And I remember someone said, oh, digital is not art form. I said, what? I'm high-tech professional. So it's easy for me to foray into digital world. And I capture the richness of digital media. So you can see this one, and I'll share later on. This is a mixture of traditional platform as well as digital platform to create that complex emotions that I carry within myself. Now let's give you a brief history or brief background on South Asian folk art. So that's my heritage, primarily Bengali folk art. But I also foray into Madhubani. The Bengali folk art, again, is primarily done by rural women in Bangladesh and West Bengal, in India. And Madhubani originated by the rural women, and mostly marginalized women, in Mithila region in Nepal. And then it spread to South India, Bangladesh, West Bengal, and other states like Orissa and Assam. So these two, Bengali and Madhubani, you will see, I exhibited, there are some artwork, my artwork, using those platforms. And the third one I started to foray into is called Warli Indigenous, and it's primarily in South India. And I got fascinated by it. And I'll show one of the art that I have done, but it's not in the exhibit. And it's almost like they're like Native Americans. So they're kind of isolated, and they use stick figures, but it's very rich in storytelling. So that's what I like about Warli Indigenous art, folk art. But I'm going to share with you my artwork on it, but it's not in the exhibit. So this is the mixed technique, what I mentioned, is both Bengali folk art combined with Western abstract art form. And you can see the carviness of the women figures. But it's in the garden, so it's both abstraction, as I said, to show the rhythms I feel through this carviness that the Bengali folk art provides me, but also using the abstract platform, it gives me richness in other forms. So this is mixed technique artwork. It's not purely Bengali folk art. This is Madhubani folk art. And you can see, again, this is also, I did it on fabric. As a matter of fact, I did that on a tote bag. And it's there, it's unfinished. I haven't finished it yet, but I wanted to share with the community just to show the richness of it and how I transported it into the digital world, intermixed with it, to show the richness of when I integrate both digital and traditional platform, the richness I get. So this is, you can see, very integrated, very detailed, but it also tells a story. There are stories in it. The women tell their stories. And I'm not sure whether I capture it right, but and I did it from my mind. I didn't follow any, I just follow how the Madhubani art is done, and then I used my mindset to create that. And there is this, when I started to do it, I felt so intense when I'm drawing it, in the emotional space, as well as in my dream, to create that peacock that carries my soul. So that's the intimacy I feel when I did that. And it took me a long time to do it because I didn't do it from some examples. And this is the digital transition. So you can see, it's the same art. I put it in my computer and make it very abstract and change the colors. And it tells another story in another emotional space. So why I should discard digital? That's my background anyway. So I create that and show how everything dances, everything sings in a different way, irrespective of what platform I choose or how do I integrate them. So you can see it's the same art. I took it from my traditional, from my fabric art, created the digital representation. Again, you'll see in the, this is again another example of Madhubani art. And again, you see women tell their stories, raising kids. And the sharp lines you can see, and the sharp features. But it tells stories. This is, again, this is also, I think, in the exhibit. This, fusing my Bengali heritage, the Bengali folk arts, with the Latina women. So you can see, we call them Alpuna. And in this culture I found out it's called Mandela, or something like that. So I kind of like use both Latino culture as well as my Bengali heritage, Bengali folk art heritage, and create this artwork, intermingling both of them. This is the worldly folk art that I mentioned earlier. And you can see the stick figures and how busy these stick figures are doing their chores, capturing their lifestyle, the life activities. Someone is cooking, someone is building the house. And it's very rich, at least what I feel. And I was not familiar because that's from South India. And I'm more from northern part of India. This is the mural I did, but this is the digital representation. The mural I did in Harlem, New York City, in 2016. And I was asked to do a fairy. I said, that what fairy? Western fairy or Bengali fairy? So I had to decide. So I decided, no, I'm not going to do a fairy, but a woman, a representation of women, a South Asian woman with the Bengali motifs. So that's what I created. And this is the digital representation of the mural that I did in Harlem. This is the chalk art mural from Redwood City that I did during the pandemic. And what happened is that during the pandemic, they couldn't have it in downtown Redwood City. They usually have during the week of July 4th to celebrate. And we have to apply, artists get to be selected, and they do their artwork, and they were given spaces, like usually like 6 by 6 or 8 by 10 or 10 by 10 feet. It's huge. And do the artwork there, chalk art. But during the pandemic, they couldn't do it. So what they did, they handed out the materials and asked the artist, the selected artists, to do on their driveways or on the sidewalks in their own township. Because we couldn't, at that time we couldn't make. And you can see, it's really representing the pandemic era with the mask and she was wearing. And you can see the Bengali motifs. All these are Bengali folk art motifs that I used. And this is the chalk art mural I did this year in Redwood City, in downtown Redwood City. And this is now, I used the Madhubani art form, Madhubani art. But there is also, you can see, I interjected with human figures. And this is called Ulka in Bengali, and then there are human figures you can see there. There you can see it. So I created that abstract representation as well. So I always have the tendency to mix and match, mix together all different art forms. So there is this Madhuban in the center, but these are mostly Bengalis and abstract representation and portraiture, human figures. This is complete abstract, but using the folk art form. And you can see it's an instrument, if you can take a careful look, but the colors are all folk art colors. But I created an abstraction of them. That feeling when I was in New York City, being confined in Brooklyn, in the small areas, I had to create that music within myself and express that in some else. And that's the best way to do it is use the colors from folk art, but use abstract form. Because a lot of the emotions are very abstract, cannot be formulated with the mathematical equations. It's not like the Fourier equations that I can create. This is another primarily folk art based, but again using the Western abstract art form. And she's a street singer in Bengal, and you can see the instrument there. But what is music? And I just read recently, maybe a few days ago, our brain structure is not three-dimensional. I haven't finished the article yet, but it's 11 dimension, almost like physics string theory, if you're familiar with it. Physics also has 11 dimension in string theory. So they are calling that the brain is 11 dimension structurally. So what is music? Music is also not three-dimensional. How do I express that feeling? I have to use abstract to create that. So you can see she's singing with her instrument, a Bengali instrument called ektara, a single string instrument. But all these waves, all these patterns give the dimensions to her music, to her world. And I want to be part of that. That's how I create, because that's how I feel when I listen to music. It's not one-dimensional. It's around all my surroundings. How do I create that? How do I express that? What will be the form? So that's how I do it. This is again a mixture of modern and Bengali albuna or motifs. So creating again another art form for me. And as I mentioned, I get very enamored by street and graffiti art. especially, I don't claim to be at the level of Banksy, but I do feel street has a lot to tell us, especially when I saw on the walls of Bronx, those richness, those neighborhood kids telling their stories using brushstrokes, paintbrushes. I wanted to capture that, and this one is also in the exhibit. But I also expressed that identity of women. We are strong. We can have a voice. So that's the representation using the street art form. Create that voice that we are women. We have identity and we have a voice. And we also have a history. Again, this is peaceful. This I wanted to show another side of me. It's in a New York park, but using using the colors of folk art, but it's primarily Western, influenced by Western modern art. Now I'll read another poem. It's not the maddening dance. It's not the universe, not the earth or sun, not even the human race. It's everything, painted furiously as the obstinate heart cannot stop it, vibrating in all musical scales, in all rhythms and tunes, singing, sharing, whispering, in the backdrop of overwhelming silence, stories of their spectacular dance unfold. Spiraling maddeningly in their shells, in every nucleus, atom, molecule, and everything, and even in the 3-degree Kelvin cosmic waves, their intricate steps refuse to give in to mundanity. Resonating with their whirlwind rhythms, my verses finally feel freed to embrace the restless beauty of fermions. The fermions are fundamental particles. I'm a physicist, as I mentioned. Electrons and the composite particles like protons and neutrons, and also quarks. That's the fundamental particles. What do they do? They spiral around the nucleus or in orbital shells. They're mad. They're maddeningly whirlwinding. That's the spirit. That's the, what I call exceptional experience. That's how women feel, being tied to their families, to their households. That maddening aspirations, creating that maddening dance through their artwork, through their writings, create their own space, define themselves like the fermions do. Women are part of this universe, and we are dancing maddeningly all across the universe like fermions. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. So visit my site if you're interested. It's called New York City Rainbow Faces, because where I originated as an artist and a writer. And also if you want to collaborate, please contact me. And thank you again for coming over. Thank you. I really appreciate for giving me the opportunity to share that maddening dance, going out of this ordinariness, that exceptional experience that I mentioned at the beginning. We can create that. We can be part of that universe through, as fermions do. We will be women with the maddening aspirations and inspirations. Thank you again. And you can see